Well, good morning, SDEWES people. We open today with this ceremony the working part of this conference. First of all, a kind welcome for all of you. Distinguished guests, Rector of the University of Palermo, Professor Fabrizio Micari, President of the SDEWES Center, Professor Neven Djuic, lead author of Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and DSC member of SDEWES, Dr. Shil Kilkish, distinguished member of the International Scientific Committee, Scientific Advisory Board, Programming Committee, Special Session Programming Committee, Poster Session Programming Committee, our committee, Keynote and Panel Programming Committee, Special Issue Programming Committee, sponsor and partners, special session organizers, invited plenary lecturers, panelists, session chairs and co-chairs, session keynotes, members of the SDEWES Center, speakers and participants, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you in the name of the organizing committee to the 13th Conference on Sustainable Development of Energy, Water and Environment Systems. I would like to especially thank those that helped this conference giving even financial support. Our gold corporate partner, Sea Energy 2020, which is a network of national contact points for energy work program of the Horizon 2020. Please visit their stand, they have a stand here, and also attend their session to find out what future opportunities we will have for funding in Europe in next years. Also, I would like to thank all the other sponsors. I would also like to thank publishers and editors-in-chief of the journals that have already announced special issues, like Elsevier's Energy, Energy Conversion and Management, Renewable and Sustainable Energy Reviews, Journal of Environmental Management, as well as Waste Management and Research, Renewable Energy, Journal of Sustainable Development of Energy, Water and Environmental Systems, and all the others which are still under negotiation. In this line, our role as scientists is to look for ways how to improve integration of various life-supporting systems, such as energy, transport, water, and environment, and increase efficiency of processes by using waste resources from one system as input to the other. We attempt to promote that by a multidisciplinary and holistic perspective, in order to all of us to look at the bigger picture and not focus just on the small area of our specialization. The conference is organized by University of Palermo and by traditional organizers that are University of Zagreb and the Institute Superior Technico of Lisbon. And now I would like to give a special thanks for being here to the rector of the University of Palermo, Professor Fabrizio Micari, and I would like him to give his welcome address to the participants. Please, Professor Micari, the floor is yours.
Okay, that's perfect. Well, thank you very much. It's really a pleasure for me to be here to open this conference, and it's a pleasure for several reasons. First of all, because this conference is or covers some topics that are really very, very important for our world and what is more for our future world. I mean the themes of sustainable energy, the themes of water are, of course, strategic for the future of our world and for the future of the next generations. I remember that a few years ago I had the way to listen to a conference, and someone said that during the last century, the wars were due to petrol. Maybe the next wars could be due to water. So how to manage these problems, the problem of water, the problem of energy, are definitely strategic problems and very, very important for our future. And I guess that the point of view and the role of the scientific community, of scientists, on the solution of these problems is fundamental. In our country, in these days, there is a very strong debate about the importance of competence. Someone says that competence is no more necessary. I believe that competence is the basis for any decision. I believe that scientists and our scientific world have a fundamental role because we have competence and we can show, we can highlight which have to be the best solution to manage this kind of problems. And the second reason for which I am very happy to be here is that I have the opportunity to stay together and to support the work of our young colleagues, very, very clever. We have a very good group of young professors in the field of energy, in the field of sustainable energy. And these friends, these young professors, really represent an important part of the future of our university. We have a good tradition in the field of energy management. In Italy, maybe there are some Italians here. We have the scientific sectors, and the sector of technical physics, fisica tecnica, has always been one of the most important in our universities. But I have to say that nowadays we have a very good group of young professors, young scientists that work very well and that can represent not only the present but also the future of our university. So I believe that that as a university we can stay comfortable in the sense that we can have the possibility to look to a very good future with these young professors. Well, what to say more? Just a couple of words about our university. Probably it's important for the people that is here. The University of Palermo has nowadays, the University of Palermo is, according to the Italian use, is a sort of young university because we have only 212 years of history. In Italy, we have a lot of universities that are much more ancient, Bologna, La Sapienza, and so on. They have something like 9 century years of history. We have 212, so in comparison with other Italian universities, we are still young. But anyway, we have a good tradition in any case. Nowadays, we have something like 41,000 students. This is our dimension. We are in the group of the mega universities, so the 10 biggest universities in Italy. We have something like 1,500 teaching staff, 1,600, 700 administrative staff, and we try to cover almost all the fields of science. We are a so-called generalistic university in the sense that we try to cover all the field of science. And what is very important here is that we are working as much as possible on internationalization, and we are trying to increase our international offer, Nowadays, we have several international courses that are completely, at the master level mainly, that are completely given in English. And this is the reason for which we want to cooperate as much as possible with other universities for integrated projects of studies, for research projects, of course, but also for double title degrees. Nowadays, the percentage of foreign students in our university is growing and growing, and this is a very distinctive point and a very relevant point for our politic action. So really all these opportunities of meeting to stay together with other colleagues coming from different universities are important opportunities for us. I believe that I'm very happy that here there are so many young people, because the tendency nowadays is to refuse conferences and to work only for journals. This is right, because journals and publications on journals are required to go on with the career. But I believe that also conferences and the possibility to stay together, to meet, to discuss, to start cooperation is absolutely fundamental. So I hope that you will enjoy these days from the scientific point of view, but also I hope from the life point of view. Palermo is nowadays a wonderful town. There are so many tourists everywhere. The town is living a very nice period, so I hope that you will enjoy the conference. You will obtain important scientific achievements and enhancements, but also that you will enjoy your town. So thank you very much, and stay well in Palermo.
Well, thank you, Professor Micari, for your precious words and your wishes for the conference. And now I would like to give you an overview of the conference, also based on some numbers. Here you have a view of the sponsor of the conference. Well, first of all, I would like to thank the International Scientific Committee and the Scientific Advisory Board that worked day and night to review the submitted abstracts, of which the conference received 645 from authors coming from 48 different countries. For those submissions deemed acceptable, authors were invited to submit a full-length manuscript, and we have received more than 400 full papers. The papers deemed to be of archival value were then reviewed, and 239 of them were accepted as being candidates for further publishing in special issues of journals, for which I would especially like to thank the Scientific Advisory Board, made of 346 leading scientists in these fields. In the end, 425 submissions are expected to be presented in the next 4 days. We are very happy with the fact that this 13th conference created such an interest among researchers. The first 8 edition of this conference, you can see some number here. Here are countries of origin of our participants and the number I gave. Here are some flags just to identify these countries. Well, this is, of course, the last of a long series of conferences. A conference, as I was saying, that is continuously growing. The first 8 editions, here you have some number of conferences, of course, started with a smaller number, approximately 200 participants in the first 4 editions, and then a continuous growth. We had 320 in the 5th one, approximately 400 in the 6th, reaching in the successive years a sort of plateau at around 500 or more participants in each September conference. Also, other initiatives have started, like Southern East SDEWES conference, which has now completed in June its 3rd edition, and also this year we had the first Latin American conference. You can see that numbers are continuously increasing by when we look at cumulative values. This year we have more than 1,200 submissions to be in the free conference altogether. I would like especially to thank all the members of the organizing committee who made this conference possible. First thank is, of course, to Professor Nevenjuic, who first identified Palermo as a possible venue for such a relevant event. Thank you. And also, of course, for sharing, in its quality of President of SDEWES Center and co-chair of the conference, most of the important decisions we had to take. A second thank is for Professors Fabio Cardona and Andrea Cipollina, the 2 senior local members of the local organizing committee, who gave me constant support in arranging any local stuff, like services, excursions, and so on. And also to all the guys who are the SDEWES hidden but pulsating heart. Eva, with whom probably I exchanged some thousands emails in the last few weeks. Marco, who offered excellent support for any technical problem. Nevena, who worked a lot with all the financial issues. Tomislav, who coordinates our staff. And also all the other young members who are now with us and will help in the next days to ensure that everything works well. And now I would like to remind some of the strict rules that SDEWES adopts. I think they are a basis for this growth of the conference, because it is more and more perceived by the scientific community as a serious and challenging platform to deliver research products. So I remind that only papers presented by registered authors at the conference will be deemed published. Something similar, very important, must be said for posters, since I remind to authors that to attend properly the poster sessions, with the presenting author standing nearby the poster during the session, in order to be able to answer possible questions from interested participants and members of poster evaluation committee. Posters simply displayed, not having a presenter nearby, will not be deemed as presented and the paper as published. Also, the participation of the session will be limited to registered participants wearing accreditation, as well as the access to conference excursions, gala dinners, and conference lunches. Will be limited to those in possession of tickets delivered to you at the registration. You can see that on the back of your badge. Best papers and poster award will be proclaimed in the award session, which will start immediately after this opening session. So please, you are all supposed to attend also the award ceremony, because we will only award present authors. With this, I would like to proclaim the 13th SDEWES conference open. Here are just some suggestions for all of you in order to extend and increase the visibility of the conference. You can use hashtag SDEWES to share any content on the Twitter, well, social networks, Twitter and Facebook. You can tag yourself when looking as when included in some of the pictures that will be shown. And well, after, okay, let's leave this task to the chair of the our committee to outline the rest of the contents. Well, and now I would like to invite Professor Neven Djuic, President of the SDEWES Center, to give an introductory talk on the topic sustainable or unsustainable. That is the question. Please, Professor Djuic, the floor is yours.
Sorry, please, but we can capture the video in this moment because when the computer is supposed to start, I don't know why the program doesn't work.
So some technical problems as usually with engineers. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Antonio, for your kind introduction, and also thank you very much for organizing this great conference in a great place. It was it's not an easy task to do it. So my question to him yesterday was, is he going to organize the second one? And he said yes, in 40 years. Okay, you mentioned already that we had the regional Latin American conference in Rio de Janeiro in January, and at that conference was an excellent invited talk that I would like to say something about from Ingo Stadler. Professor Ingo Stadler from Cologne University. He's also a member of International Scientific Committee, and his lecture is online, full. You can see it if it interests you. But the message that I got, an interesting message from this lecture, was what is the difference between the Montreal process and UNFCCC process, or what we call now Paris Agreement. Montreal process is about solving the ozone hole, and it was easy to solve because we just changed gases. We forbade some gases and introduced new gases, but the companies that deal with gases are the same companies. So we didn't really have to change the business model, and that's why Montreal is such a huge success and ozone is coming back to the poles. Climate change is more difficult. If we want to mitigate climate change, we have to do a complete change of energy system. And that, unfortunately, means we have to change companies because the old companies will not fit into the new model. And that is why we are afraid of change, because it's so much involved in it, so many jobs, so many people. and it will be very difficult to do the change. There will be a lot of fighting, and that's why this process is going so slowly. But it's going slowly. We'll see later, are we going to save the climate or not? This is going on now. Elon Musk is under huge pressure from Security Commission in the States because he said something wrong. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't say if it's true. But the fact is, if you follow last few years, there's a lot of pressure on him coming from the media, from the competition, because they're actually afraid of him. Because Tesla has proved that electric mobility is possible, and that it's possible to destroy the whole business model that we had in 20th century with IC engine. So that's why they're afraid so much, and that's why he will probably end in jail one day, because he is so successful. If you want to try Tesla, there will be test drives. It's a wonderful car, 400 horsepower. We came all the way from Zagreb with it, and you know, driving in Italy, it's great. Italians like to drive fast. So from time to time, I just show them what it means Tesla. Just leave them behind. You know, you just press the acceleration, and everybody stays behind you. So you should try. I hope in Mondello we will manage to make you feel the push, the impulse of Tesla. If it's too crowded, then of course we can't do it. But there is some faster roads nearby. Electrification of transport is coming. The growth is 50–60% per year of electrical cars. China is the market leader, and I believe that China is actually the best place to develop electric mobility, because they have not such a big problem with incumbent companies that will fight back. They don't have oil, and China never had a big export market of cars. So we can't really expect that Germany will be on the lead of development of electric cars, but China has a huge interest to develop new technology, and they're doing excellent jobs. If you come today to the big cities of China, all the buses are already electric. It's amazing. You don't hear it. No more this terrible noise of diesel buses. Whoever wants to buy a diesel bus anymore? Renewable energy is becoming really cheap. It's competitive with fossil fuels. The prices are falling down, and there is no reason why these prices wouldn't be falling even further. So we have technology, economically viable technology, to mitigate climate change. Of course, there are some issues that we have to solve on the way, but intermittency of renewables is a very nice problem for engineers. So we should actually be solving this problem. It's a lot of papers that we can publish, a lot of projects that we can get, because this is really hot issue, how to increase the integration of renewables. More grids, flexibilization of thermal power plants, wholesale markets, but what comes as a really big change of the energy system is integration of power, heating, cooling, transport, and water systems in smart energy systems. Because we need to find demand response in other systems. Electrification of heating and transport, which jointly covers 70% of the final energy demand, can give us enough demand response to integrate intermittent renewables. Energy storage, electricity energy storage is actually the last resort, because the dedicated electricity storage is quite expensive. So we have to change the paradigm, move from the 20th century energy system in which supply follows demand to the 21st century energy system in which demand follows supply. We have to move to smart energy systems. And that will be hard for energy people because that means a complete change of business models. Just to give you slight insight what it means for integration of variable renewables, if we have a conventional energy system which is flexibilized reasonably well, we can only increase the penetration of wind up to a certain point. On the x-axis, you see the percentage of wind in the energy system. On the y-axis, you see how much of that wind cannot be integrated in a particular system. So basically, when you reach 5% of curtailment, that is not anymore economic for wind energy. So the limit of integration of wind, an easy calculation, is around 20%. But if we couple a power system with heating system through district heating, or it can be cooling system in hot climates, we can actually go up to 40% of integration. If we couple it also with transport system, we can go up to 80%. So the last 20% is very difficult, and this is still open for scientific research. But this 80% is actually easy and cheap from the point of view of techno-economic side, but very difficult from the point of view of changing the whole system, having new companies joining the system, and reducing the barriers of the incumbents. Where we are on the climate side, well, unfortunately, 1.5 degrees, we will be spending our budget in 4 years. By 21, we already used all the carbon budget. If we don't quickly invent some carbon storage, that means that 1.5% is not really that feasible, and we have decided to go for it. What is more probable is 3 degrees, which we still can catch with quite a big effort still. But that means quite a big change to our socio-economic environment. That probably means 500 million climate refugees in Europe. And we remember a few years ago when only 1 million created a big thing in Europe. So unless we want a really unstable political future, we should do much better than 3 degrees. But 1.5 degree means that we have to stop using fossil fuels basically tomorrow. So what are the questions I put for this conference? What I think are crucially important for a multidisciplinary conference to think about are the following. So the barriers to change are much higher than the change that we need. How to smoothly remove barriers to change. How to find ways to involve also the old players into this transition. Technology is ready, but how to roll it much faster. We need it much, much faster. Transition is economically better than business as usual for most, not for all. But how to make decisions viable for all, how to make a system work for everyone. Integration of power, heating, cooling, water, and transport system is necessary, but how to make it work. So let us help solve this conundrum together during the next 3 days. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Professor Duce, for Thank you, Professor Duce, for this interesting talk that put all the problems on the tables. And now I would like to invite Dr. Shir Kilkish, lead author of Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change for Urban Systems and Other Settlements, and member of International Scientific Committee of SDEWES, to give her introductory speech titled Role of Cities in Addressing Climate Change and Perspective from the SDEWES Index. Thank you, Shir, please.
Thank you, Antonio, for organizing such a wonderful conference in Palermo. And as mentioned, since the establishment of the IPCC, 5 assessment reports have already been put forth. And the 6th assessment report will have 17 chapters, starting from mitigation pathways, sectoral chapters including energy systems, buildings, transport industry, and Chapter 8 is focused on urban systems and other settlements. And this is deemed as a very important chapter because it's also cross-sectoral. Urban systems have in themselves the buildings, transport, and industry, and even some agricultural systems. So this is an elevated chapter by the IPCC, deemed very important. And this will be followed by other chapters with more cross-cutting issues, including accelerating the transition to the context of sustainable development. And the 6th assessment report is scheduled for acceptance by the IPCC by the year 2021. As mentioned, the scope of the Chapter 8, Urban Systems and Other Settlements, will focus on such issues as urbanization wedge, city emissions, what are the drivers, how are these affected, and most importantly, urban mitigation options and strategies, including low-carbon city scenarios, options, as well as costs, and disruptive urban technologies. Yes, cities are making progress, but how can this progress be more transformative? As well as waste and wastewater management aspects, approaches to material recycling, and urban experimentation, because like cities, islands, cities are also living laboratories. A lot of experimentation to making more transformative change can be approached and realized in cities. Chapter 8 will be prepared by 8 lead authors from different institutions. And we will have the pleasure of preparing this chapter because cities have a crucial role in addressing urban challenges for a more sustainable planet. And time is running out. But cities can be the game changer of accelerating the progress that is made by humanity to reduce CO2 emissions rapidly. In addition to the main 6th assessment report that is being prepared, within the 6th assessment cycle, there are 3 special reports. And as we're speaking right now, the IPCC is discussing the special report on global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and related greenhouse gas emission pathways. And within 1 week, next week, one week from now, this will be released. So providing more scientific support to realizing a scenario as close to the 1.5 degrees Celsius scenario as possible depends on us researchers and the scientific community. Already, there's a realization that systems approach is crucial for cities, while inadequate tools for decision support are one of the barriers for its realization. So we as researchers need to accelerate giving more scientific support to cities. Also, priorities for supporting cities involve expanding observations based on urban data for supporting low-carbon cities, and shortcomings remain in supporting a coherent urban science for global sustainability. All of this underlines the importance of cities in addressing climate change while showing a clear need for more strengthened scientific support. Already, cities are making progress, and when these projections are extended to the year 2050, the targets adopted by the cities are feasible for a 2-degree scenario. But when the progress that is monitored by the cities are compared, the progress that is made by cities can even reach scenarios close to the 1.5 degree Celsius scenario. And there are also co-benefits. It showed that energy savings and improvements in air quality saved over 65,000 lives due to better air quality. This year, also the elevated importance given by IPCC to cities was established by the first ever IPCC Cities and Climate Change Conference. And it was underlined that cities need more transformative solutions based on systematic knowledge base to support the cities. And we need a greater understanding of systematic linkages between the urban sectors. And one of the contributions in this conference was based on the SDEWES index. The SDEWES index is an indicator, an original composite indicator with 35 main indicators in 7 dimensions. And it is putting forth an original benchmarking approach to benchmark cities in aspects of energy, water, and environment systems. Since the first Southeast European SDEWES conference in Ohrid, the SDEWES index has benchmarked cities in different stages. And in addition to the benchmarking results as published in various journals, benchmarking tools have been put forth to compare cities, for example, a SDEWES index benchmarking tool, as well as 4-step process to support decision making, as well as a SDEWES index atlas that is shared on the SDEWES website. And most recently in the 3 conferences, including Palermo, organized in 2018, the SDEWES index has made a normative approach for Rio de Janeiro, supporting the planning in a city in Turkey, and also for the 13th SDEWES conference, in line with the Greening the Islands initiative, port cities and island cities have been benchmarked. The SDEWES index strengthens how we approach cities as a database, as a data source for comparative analyses in such dimensions as energy usage and climate, looking at the energy usage of different urban sectors, the penetration of energy and CO2 saving measures, including district heating and cooling networks, renewable energy potential and utilization, seeing the cities as a source of data for seeing how they're making progress in increasing renewable energy, particularly in the electricity sector, urban usage and environmental quality, including annual mean particulate matter 10 concentrations, the CO2 emissions and industrial profile, for example, what is the average CO2 intensity in cities, urban planning and social welfare, and last but not least, as put forth by the importance of this conference, R&D, innovation, sustainability policy, because we need to support cities with more scientific support. Benchmarking cities can give greater knowledge base for strengthening action. Let's take a quick look at Palermo. Currently in Palermo, the magnitude of buildings and transport, mostly energy leads in the transport sector, and energy per capita is 10.48 megawatt hours on a yearly basis, with the primary energy ratio 79%. Urban light rail density remains at a 17-kilometer network. The density is 0.10 kilometers per kilometer squared, and there's ongoing retrofits of school buildings for net zero targets. Palermo has 14,074 kilowatt of solar and photovoltaics, and the solar thermal we can see in the buildings, and the city has a 22% reduction target by the year 2020. The waste per capita is a little bit high relatively, is 525 kilograms with a recycling rate that remains at 9.8%. 100% of wastewater is collected and treated in compliance with the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. Daily consumption of drinking water, ecological footprint at the city level for Palermo, these are available in the scientific literature. About 70% of inhabitants are concentrated in the urban core of the city. The urban area of Palermo has a sprawl, so this land usage of Palermo is growing faster than the population rate at 5.3%. The urban areas, the green areas within the city area, and this leads us to benchmarking, these and related data inputs leads us to benchmark Palermo as in the transitioning cities of the sample, so the cities that are ranked between 60 to 30 rank positions. And the index value of Palermo is 30.030 out of 50. And when we look at accelerating coherent progress above averages, we see that cities that are leading in the SDEWES index are able to make a greater above average performance. And in the dimensions, more dimensions are above average. For example, on the pioneering cities, all dimensions are above average. And these are one by one, decreasing in the other dimensions. So increasing a coherent approach across the dimensions is important. And this is why planning for an integrated urban transition across energy, water, and the environment systems is important. There are concepts as an energy transition with embedded aspects, aspects for an urban transition, urban circular economy, urban symbiosis, but can we realize all these transitions together, and can cities become a SDEWES-aware city? This is the question, how to integrate these systems. Already, there can be synergy with possible foresight for Palermo. There has been a roadmap for energy project for Palermo, and in this, even sharing of energy is envisioned, so how energy can be shared in Palermo in the next years. And if we imagine more and more with scientific support, can Palermo, by making transition in integrated energy, water, environment systems, can Palermo also be a SDEWES-aware city, increasing the performance across multiple dimensions, multiple indicators, and for a coherent progress? This atlas shows the possible waste heat in the island of Sicily, and within 12 kilometers, there's also theoretically available residual heat from the cement industry. So maybe within the sharing energy concept that is foreseen by the Roadmap for Energy project, such future opportunities could also be captured. And here we see the existing Sankey diagram of the island of Sicily, the energy system. And just by looking at the flows from the energy resources to the sectors, we can share some strategies. For example, increasing the share of renewables in the electricity mix, increasing the share of electricity in transport, substituting the combustion of natural gas for low exergy demands by alternatives, including, and most importantly, renewable energy, and reducing the energy demand and increasing flexibility, including in the wastewater sector. All of this is very important because, as underlined by the previous assessment reports, time is of the essence. How much we make progress in mobilizing the renewable energy and energy efficient solutions can bring us closer to the 1.5 degree scenario. So time is of the essence, and increased scientific support, increased research, increased ideas is of the essence as well. So urban transitions in energy, water, environment systems towards SDEWES-aware cities can further accelerate progress closer to the 1.5 degree Celsius scenario. How can cities be SDEWES-aware? Cities need to use energy resources rationally at the right amount, quality, and time, act to preserve water resources, and seek integration whenever possible to valorize limited natural resources in better respect of environmental balances. So dare to challenge, dare to change, and dare to realize transformative solutions and envision sustainable cities. This is just an overview of the keywords that are included in the scientific program of the 13th SDEWES conference. And remember the message that we need to dare to challenge the future to realize a more sustainable planet.
Well, thank you, Chair, for this Palermo-centered speech, and well, for your ideas you shared with us. And now I would like to have a short introduction, which is, well, you can see that it has a very open title, that is undergoing transitions while staying in the middle of. Who knows what in those dots? I would like to try to explain how transitions, focusing on Sicily, assuming it as a sample for a possible, region staying in the middle of many things, as you will see, could be even more risky than elsewhere. So let's talk some second about transitions. They are, of course, they imply deep modifications in the societal structural framework, of course, and also usually they are occur because we have new opportunities or we must solve new problems, of course. And they usually involve simultaneously several spheres of human existence. What we have been experiencing, and it is quite now to our knowledge, is that in the last decades transitions are occurring due to external impulse, which are getting less and less predictable and faster and faster. Here is three lines, trends in this graph. The black line indicates a transition process, and the green and the red one indicate the conjunctural trend the transition tend to respond to, and the fluctuation that stimulated this conjunctural trend. As to make an example, the red line could be something like the price of energy on the market, the green one, the rapid fluctuation in the conjunctural economy, and then transitions can be something like the changing installed electric capacity in order to face a growing demand. Of course, we have first experienced in the history that suddenly something can be very different from the past. The financial and economic crisis has taught us that long-term scenarios are very poorly reliable. If you look at International Energy Agency reports or any of our previous researches produced 20 years ago and for 20 years ahead, we have completely made wrong predictions of what would have happened, at least at some local levels. So we must focus on the fact that despite opportunities, transitions imply serious risks. And Sicily can represent an example of how these risks could emerge and be exacerbated when you are planning for a region which is, as you will see, in the middle of many things. First, in the middle of the sea. We are on an island, and this is the first SDEWES conference held in an island. It coincides with growing interest on this topic of sustainability in islands and the Greening the Islands initiative. And most of islands, like Sicily, share in common, of course, a very delicate equilibrium between terrestrial and marine ecosystems, and also a deep interrelation between environmental and economical sustainability, because the touristic vocation of such places may be strongly affected by environmental impacts of anthropic activities. So preserving natural landscapes is obviously a priority not only for naturalistic or environmental purposes, but also for economical purposes. We are also in the middle of Mediterranean people and cultures. We cannot neglect what this means today. Today means also facing the human tragedies and what we have of unsustainable at the highest level. We are facing extremely serious challenges with political instabilities and wealth inequalities in many countries. So there are migration processes, and being in the middle of the Mediterranean means being a front spot to this process. But in the centuries, being in the middle of the Mediterranean has meant essentially to be very easy to be invited. being invited is something very bad for people living in the period when a land is invaded. But when you look centuries back, being invaded is a resource. You can look here how many dominations we have had in the centuries from classical age to middle age to pre-modern era in Sicily, from Greek, Phoenician, Roman, then Germanic, Byzantine, Arab, Norman, several French dominations, Spanish, and so on. All of these dominations have made enormous gift to this region. You will enjoy some of them during discussions. We have planned to allow you to see some of the wonders of this city, some UNESCO World Heritage Sites, but we have a lot from the most archaeological and ancient one to the most recent ones all around Sicily. Of course, preserving these beauties and wonders is also a priority for any planning action. But what is the impact of this in terms of sustainability? Of course, it means having the sweet problem of 5 million of tourists per year. That means doubling on some period the number of inhabitants of the island. And of course, mostly concentrated in a short period, well, let's say from late spring to early autumn. Also, it means a change of perspective or the need to face new problems when talking about integration of renewables, for instance. Here, of course, you can see something that doesn't happen. We never integrate like that wind turbines in ecological sites, but it is important to stress that the problem when talking about architectural integration of renewables here is not anything like this, but attempting to answer the following question: how to integrate here renewables? So the perspective is quite different, and it must be kept into account. Of course, this is a problem we share with, a sweet problem, as I said, with several Italian regions. I have talked with people in Naples, Rome, and so on. Anytime you try to make a district something, a district either heating or cooling, when you start excavation, you find something Roman or so on, and you must immediately stop. So this is something that should be kept into account, of course. Just some spot on what energy from a wider perspective means for Sicily. Sicily, due to its position, so being in the middle of Mediterranean countries, has meant being has meant serving as an energy hub for Italy. You can see that, well, let's say 34 billion of normal cubic meter of gases imported by Italy are from Sicily. We have approximately 40% of the importing capacity via pipelines of the country, and we only consume 4 billion cubic meters. That means there is a strong, well, does this pointer work? Okay, there is a strong, a relevant gas flux to the continental Italy from Sicily. Also, we have been very close to install a new regasification LNG regasification plant, because, of course, being closer to the trades of ships makes it cheaper for transport. This means that you must be must install very large facilities, of course, affecting the local equilibrium of environmental equilibrium of the site, But this, luckily, I can say today, luckily, did not occur because, as I said, suddenly we had the economic crisis. So here is the current status of utilization of our pipelines. As you can see, since the crisis started, we have extremely underused the importation capacity. That means that if this regasification facility was installed, it would have worked very low. So great impact and not well, benefits in terms of employment and royalties and whatever for such a region can be important. So this is a lesson we teach about the trends we saw on transition. Investing, when it is strongly, well, it has strongly impacts on a site, is something that you must make with great attention, being very keen in attempting to predict what is going to be. Another example, we are again in the, due to the position, an energy hub from the viewpoint of refinery capacity of the country. You can see here that in 2013, these are piece of cakes that represent Sicilian capacity, refining capacity. This is the rest of Italy. Again, we have been serving in the last 40 years as a refinery for the whole country. Of course, all of these infrastructural facilities have had enormous impact, local impacts. This collides, of course, with the preservation of naturalistic beauties, as said before. But whenever, of course, most of these plants are trying to be converted to be cleaner and cleaner with time, but that's not so easy. Of course, here, what you see here are petrochemical plants, essentially, with here also a large thermal desalination plant and power plants too. What we can observe is that whenever we try to discuss about possibility to completely reconvert some of these plants, we have a problem. Can we, in order to become more sustainable from an environmental point of view, face the social unsustainability that would derive? We have something like 40% young people unemployment rate. Each of these plants employs like 1,000 or 1,200 guys and people who have family. How to govern this transition while guaranteeing social sustainability? Well, this is a very rapid spot I want to give in order to better understand the surrounding, where you come from, where you arrived, and when back to your country, just to have a wider memory of what Sicily is from other point of view. Thank you for your attention. Well, with this last short presentation focused on our region, we conclude the program of this opening ceremony that I would like to declare closed now. Then, in a few seconds, the award ceremony can start. I would like to invite to the stage Professor Natasha Markowska, who chairs the award committee. So please, Natasha, the floor is yours.